in a foreclosure situation, it's like the worst day of their life, right? We come in, we basically get them under contract, represent them in the recovery of that asset. The reason I got into looking at wholesaling is because every time I would get on the phone with a homeowner and I was helping them recover their excess funds, they would always tell me the same thing, and that is that they were working with somebody in pre-foreclosure that was gonna buy their house. Started researching it and I realized these are wholesalers. So I started looking at wholesaling.
How much money do you make doing this strategy?
Last year we did about $5 million in recovery. It was about 700 in fees.
Let's teach some strategies on how to help these pre-foreclosure people. I want the listeners to understand when they're dealing with these people. Welcome to the Wealthy Investor Podcast, the #1 podcast for flippers, wholesalers, and real estate entrepreneurs. And today on the podcast, we have an expert in pre-foreclosures and actually how to make money after a property foreclosed. Or you might be a homeowner watching this and your house foreclosed and you want to figure out how to get money that you didn't receive after the house foreclosed. And we're going to teach you all these strategies. Today on the podcast, we have Alfred from Chino Hills. How are you, baby?
Yes, sir. Good to see you, man. It's been a while.
Yeah. Excited to have you on the podcast.
I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. So let's get straight to it. So what exactly do you specialize in?
So surplus funds. It's called overages or excess proceeds. A lot of people don't. Let's scratch that part.
It's okay. Just go.
We're gonna X this out.
Yeah.
All right.
It's
So
okay.
too much coffee. So surplus funds is basically the overpayment at foreclosure auction, and that overpayment is due back to the homeowner. Many people don't know that though. So many people that are working in pre-foreclosure deals, they take them to foreclosure, and then after the foreclosure, they lose the deal.
Yeah.
But we come in, we actually help that homeowner recover that equity.
Got it. Okay, so to simplify that, let's say a property is worth $300,000. If forecloses, that means the bank repossessed it for $250,000, and the seller owed $200,000. A lot of sellers don't know that if there's equity in the sale, they actually have rights to the surplus of funds between the equity and what it foreclosed for. Yeah. So what you do is you help the homeowners get that money after it forecloses, and then you take a fee. So it's almost like wholesaling after a foreclosure.
Yeah, essentially that's what it is. So the homeowner, in a foreclosure situation, it's like the worst day of their life, right?
Yeah.
They feel like they've lost all hope, they've lost everything. But if they have a lot of equity in that property, the chances of that property selling for more than the debt is very, very high. Okay. And so when it does, we come in, we basically get them under contract, represent them in the recovery of that asset. And then we get that money back to them, and we take a fee anywhere from 10, 15, 20, 25%, depending on the state, depending on how much is remaining.
And then do you also do like traditional pre-foreclosure wholesaling and flipping, or no?
So the interesting thing about this is that the reason I got into actually wholesaling just a little bit, most of my pipeline, I'm going to say about 95% of my pipeline are surplus funds deals.
Yeah.
The reason I got into looking at wholesaling is because every time I would get on the phone with a homeowner and I was helping them recover their excess funds, they would always tell me the same thing, and that is that they were working with somebody in pre-foreclosure that was going to buy their house, right?
Yeah.
But that person didn't perform or disappeared or went ghost.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking to myself, I'm thinking like, who are these people that keep leaving these homeowners stranded? And they make promises, and then they said they're going to sell the house or they're going to help them get out of foreclosure, and then they just disappear.
Yeah.
Who are these people? And I started researching it, and I realized these are wholesalers, people who come in, they make cash offers, and then they
can't close.
they can't close or they can't perform, or maybe it's a real estate agent who couldn't perform.
Yeah.
So I started looking into how do I get into that stage of the transaction, in the pre-foreclosure stage, where I can actually come in, maybe offer a solution, whether it be, maybe refer them to a loan mod specialist or even help wholesale the property, right? So I started looking at wholesaling, and now I get like a deal or two, a wholesale deal or two here and there, but most of the deals that I'm working are actually post-foreclosure. But the reason that I'm talking about surplus funds so much these days is because I'm looking to work with wholesalers, investors, and flippers who are working deals in pre-foreclosure, and then for some reason or another, they lose that deal because of foreclosure. And that happens probably a lot, right?
Yeah. How much money do you make doing this strategy?
For every 100,000 that I recover, I make anywhere from 15 to about 25% of that.
Okay. And then how much funds do you typically recover in a year?
So last year we did about 5 million in recovery.
Okay. So you made like 500K about.
So it was about 700 in
700K.
fees. 700 in fees, yeah.
Got it. Okay.
And that was last year. When we first got into this business in 2013, we were recovering a lot more. It was a lot more wide open of a market. But, you know, a lot more competition. There's people that are learning, you know, how to do this strategy. Some regulation has come in as well to kind of prevent us from making as much as we used to.
What's the regulation? Is that a Cali or?
So Cali's, there's no cap. There's no regulation in Cali.
No cap. Shout out to California for not destroying one thing.
One thing, yeah. But in Arizona, Washington, they've got caps. More so like in the judicial states where they oversee foreclosures through the courts.
Oh, okay.
Nevada oversees foreclosures through the courts.
Oh, so you can't do it in Nevada.
You can do it in Nevada. You can do surplus funds in any state.
Yeah.
You just got to follow the red tape if there is any.
Yeah.
California, non-judicial state. Georgia, Texas, non-judicial states.
Yeah.
So there's very little red tape because, you know, it stays out of court.
Yeah.
So, so there's no cap in Texas and Georgia either.
No cap.
Yeah.
What do you think as far as, do you need a license to do this?
That's the nice thing about this. You don't need a license. You don't need to pass a test. You don't need to buy any property.
Damn.
You don't need to own any property. You don't need to be on a deed. You don't need to do any of that. So anybody literally with a phone and a computer can call on a foreclosed lead that had high equity. And if you can convince that homeowner to work with you, allow you to represent them in the recovery of the funds, you can charge anywhere from 15 to 25% for every 100,000 that you recover.
Can you charge more?
You can. And when we first started this business in 2013, 14, 15, it was kind of the wild, wild west.
Yeah.
And we were charging 30, 40% at the time. Especially because we were still trying to figure it out. And we didn't have like a turnkey templated system to shoot out a lot of volume. It was literally, if they answered the phone, you were going to get that deal. That's how it was in 13 to like maybe 16.
That's how it was when I first started working NODs, just for context, right? So I started in real estate. I was calling expired listings.
Yeah.
It was working in Las Vegas, but then I moved to California. I started calling expireds out there, and it didn't work because at the time the market was hot, so there wasn't a lot of expired listings. So if there's like seven expired listings a day in like SoCal, like there's thousands and thousands and thousands of agents that are calling, door knocking, sending mail, all that stuff. So like my business like really slowed down. So then I was like, okay, what do I got to do? So I stumbled across NODs, notices of default, pre-foreclosures. I started cold calling them, and at the time, nobody was really cold calling them like hard, right? It was like light, like 1 to 2 people. So we start blowing that up, and then slowly that got saturated. But during that time, that's when I started flipping, wholesaling, and then doing short sales. And then I used to work with a company that kind of did loan modifications. So sometimes if they qualified, we would help them do a loan modification. So I'm like pretty well versed in pre-foreclosures and short sales and all that stuff.
Now with you working pre-foreclosures, out of every 10 that you might be looking to wholesale or flip, how many of those end up in foreclosure?
You know what? And I'm glad you asked this question. I would say a lot.
Yeah.
You know why? Because the sellers are just unrealistic about the situation. That's why, like, this might be a controversial hot take, but when you say, like, oh, the wholesaler dropped the ball, no.
It's not always the case.
No, it's the seller dropped the ball. If the pre-foreclosure process is not a 2-week thing, this is like months of like getting mail,
for sure,
letters on the door, calls, emails, all this stuff. So it sucks to say, but I typically don't really feel bad when homeowners' houses foreclose.
Yeah.
Because I have literally been there at the table with a homeowner, and I'm like, hey, your house is going to foreclose on Friday. Mm-hmm. And they're like, well, my uncle's going to call me back. And I'm like, dude, you're a house. Yeah. Like, this is not me scaring you. Like, look at this.
This
and
is
they're
real.
yeah, this is real. And they're like, oh, well, call me back on Thursday. I'm like, dude, what are you going to do on Thursday?
Yeah. I've been talking to foreclosed homeowners for 11 years now. And the mindset is beyond me.
Yeah.
Like literally. So I like to describe it as getting hit by lightning. So if you've never been struck by lightning, you just don't think it's going to ever happen to you, right? So like with a foreclosed homeowner, normally people only get foreclosed once, if ever, right, in their life.
Yeah.
And so before it actually happens and the sheriff is coming to the door to remove them, they don't think it's going to happen to them. And they're super in denial at the NOD stage, at the NTS stage. And you'd be surprised how many people I talk to that their property sold. I can show them the auction. I can show them the website where the auction occurred. And they're still like, I'm going to save this house. I'm staying in this house.
Yeah. That's insane.
Yeah. So
my mom was like that.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but I think people need context of like foreclosures.
Sure. Yeah.
So my mom, right? So I became a realtor. When you become a realtor, the first thing you do is like, dude, how much is this house worth? Right? That's the very first thought. You're like, this house, I live in this house. I don't even know what it's worth. So I look up the comps. The house was worth, I think at the time, like 175. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. Like my mom's house is worth 175. And then one day I was looking at her, there was a letter on the countertop, and it was her mortgage statement. And it said she owed 285. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I was like, you owe 285, but the house is 175. Underwater. That doesn't even make sense. Like I was so new to real estate. I was like, that doesn't make sense. So I take it to my broker. I was like, hey, like my mom's house is worth 175, the comps, and she owes 285. What does that mean? And he's like, oh, she's like way underwater. She needs to short sell that house. So I go back to my mom. I'm like, Mom, my broker is saying that you're upside down and you need to short sell this house. And she's like, well, I got a loan modification and my interest rate is adjustable. It's going up 1% every year. Ouch. And I can't really pay the mortgage right now. So next year when it goes up again, I need to figure out what I'm going to do. And I had to go through the pre-foreclosure process with my mom because she had a house that was upside down that she couldn't afford the mortgage. And I ended up having to help. I actually had to pay to sell my mom's house because it was just like, I don't know. It was like a weird situation. Yeah. So it's a long story, but I have done maybe 100 plus NOD short sales, not as many as you, but like as a realtor, wholesaler, flipper, all these things, I've literally done it all. And I've had sellers where I'm talking to them on Monday, their house forecloses on Friday, right? We talk. They finally listen to me on Thursday. I help them stop the pre-foreclosure and then help them sell. I've done that a lot of times. And I've also had the sellers where I'm like, they call me back on Saturday. Hey, Brian, I'm ready to sell. I'm like, let me check. Oh shit, your house just sold and you lost all your equity. I'm so sorry.
Well, now you can call me if that happens.
Yeah, now I can call you. But just on the worst scenario, sometimes when those houses foreclose, they sell even lower than what a wholesaler or flipper could have paid. So they completely lose their equity because they were so stubborn that they just let it go to waste.
Yeah. I'll tell you another interesting story. And I don't mean to make fun of these people.
I'm not making fun of anyone. I feel bad for them.
I feel really bad for them.
Yeah.
And I, just when you think you've heard it all, I had a gentleman I spoke to who lost a property. He just got removed by a sheriff. And I said, hey, he said, this is illegal what they're doing to me. He basically believes that the government conspired against him to make sure he was unemployed for the last 4 years.
Interesting.
As an accountant.
Was he schizophrenic or something like that?
He sounded normal too, dude. He sounded normal. And the other thing that made me feel bad about him, he was like, the only thing I'm guilty of is being a Christian, loving my pastor, and loving my church.
Amen.
Amen, right?
I agree with all that.
But the part where he said he was unemployed for 4 years because the government conspired to keep him unemployed, and that's why he lost the property. I said, but you didn't pay the mortgage, right? He goes, you're not hearing me, Alfred. I couldn't work. I go, but you didn't pay the mortgage with other money? He goes, you don't understand. I couldn't work because they didn't let me get a job. So I was just like, wow. I go, let me follow up with you in 30 days.
Yeah.
So he's already lost the house. He's got about $330K of equity that we can recover.
Oh, that's good.
But he doesn't want to file a claim yet until we expose the government of the crime that they've committed against him.
Yeah, so. And again, I feel really, really, really bad for all these people. So I don't want people to hear this and be like, oh, this has heartless. But
no, when
you've worked with someone that they are unrealistic about the situation, it's almost like if I'm like, hey, Alfred, your car's going to run out of gas. Like the gas meter, it says empty. It says you have 2 miles left. And you're like, nah, I'm this, I'm that. And I'm like, hey, Alfred, we're going to run out of gas, brother. Like it's coming. At some point, you start to not feel bad for people because you're just like, hey, like, I understand you went through a hard situation and I understand you love this house, but the bank will take your house. This is not like some sort of game of like, oh, they're going to come and say, oh, well, Alfred, he's a good Christian and he's a good guy. Even though he didn't pay the mortgage that he agreed to pay for the next 30 years, we're going to let him keep the house. Nah, that's not how it works.
Yeah. So over the time, we've had to develop scripts to combat that.
Yeah.
To help them realize that it's just, they're not buying your story. This is a business transaction for the bank.
Oh, yeah. They don't even know who you are.
They don't know who you are, nor do they care. You're just you're a number on a balance sheet.
Yeah.
Right. And so, we've come up with strategies that help like 20-30% of the time.
Yeah. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah. What is the old saying? Everything works sometimes, but nothing works all the time. So if you don't try to develop something new to combat that, you're never going to overcome it.
Yeah.
And so over the years, we've done okay.
So let's teach some strategies on how to help these pre-foreclosure people. And the only reason I'm harping on this, again, is not to make fun of these people or anything. I want the listeners to understand when they're dealing with these people. Like when you get blindsided by just unrealistic expectations, you have to understand like, okay, they're not there yet.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean they won't get to the point of reality, but sometimes they're not there.
Yeah.
So when you're doing when you're trying to potentially help them sell their house, if they're not there sometimes, I don't even talk about selling their house.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so let's get you with a lender. Maybe you can get a second loan that can pay off your arrears. Hey, let's go talk to a bankruptcy attorney because you think you could just go file bankruptcy and then you just live here for another couple of years. But let's see what the attorney says. Let's, there's different options. So I don't even go to the selling the house part until they're out of this like la la land.
Right. This little world that they live in, this imaginary world that someone's going to come and just give them a loan and it's going to come right at the doorstep and they're going to be able to pay off that balance. But they stick their head in the sand early on, the NOD stage. That's why it's really tough to call people at the NOD. A lot of people prefer calling people at the NTS because there's already an auction date. There's a little more urgency.
Yeah.
But still you're going to come across that, right? You're still going to come across a lot of stubbornness. But like you said, there's other factors too, other than the seller being stubborn. There's even things like probate, where there's multiple heirs and maybe two of them agree, one of them doesn't. I have situations where there's more than 3 heirs. One's in prison, one was addicted to drugs and they haven't heard from them in 7 years. Need to sign off. So there's a variety of reasons why people lose deals in pre-foreclosure. And it typically, like you said, is not always on the wholesaler.
Yeah.
It oftentimes is the seller or the seller's situation. But that's kind of my call out to wholesalers and investors to say, hey, if you are working these deals, because 99.9% of guys working in pre-foreclosure, as soon as they know the auction is coming and then there's no stopping it, they'll just ghost, right? They'll ghost the seller.
And that's weak. That's a weak move on the wholesaler side.
It is.
And realtor side.
Yeah. But what do you do though if you don't know what to do after? Like what are your options? Like what have you done in the past?
So if there's a foreclosure,
and you just can't stop it. You just tell them, hey, too late.
So
too bad,
there's a couple things. So what we used to do is get them with an attorney, and the attorney would file a skeleton BK is what we used to call it. So again, this is not law advice, so we need to get a disclosure on here somewhere. But I am not an attorney, and I'm not trying to play one.
This is YouTube. Legal, by the way.
Yeah,
a judge has to sign off on it.
Yeah, exactly. So what we used to, what people used to do, is they would go down to the courthouse and file a petition to file bankruptcy. So they would say, hey, I need time, but I want to file a bankruptcy. And then we would get that paperwork back from the county, and then we would send it to the lender and saying, hey, this person's going to file bankruptcy. And then that would postpone the pre-foreclosure because they're back then, I don't know the laws now, they weren't allowed to foreclose on the property if the seller was in an active BK.
Right.
So, and then that they could follow through with the bankruptcy if they wanted to, or they would just let it lapse. And then the pre-foreclosure process would start again, but that would give them a couple months. Sometimes sellers would do that multiple times. But the problem is, I believe after like the second time, the county could just reject your petition. You can go up there and say, hey, I want to file bankruptcy. And they're like, hey, we already see that you've done this before. No. And then you're screwed. So you could do that. Also, if you have a bankruptcy that's like super near, like you're talking about like a 48-hour window, I've paid people's arrears off and caught them back up, and then bought the house subject to, or just like bought enough time to flip it or wholesale it or figure out what to do. I've done that before. I've had people get loans because they have arrears where a hard money lender will fund their arrears.
Put a second on it.
But then it's like a second that they can foreclose pretty quickly.
Shark loan.
Yeah, like a shark loan, like a 3 to 6 month loan, like if you don't pay them back.
Yeah.
But it's not really a shark loan because it's kind of like what other you can go file bankruptcy.
Yeah, you have no option, right?
Yeah, you have no option.
It's not like they're going to cut your head off if you don't pay.
Yeah. And I've had people get shark loans and then actually go out and then refinance that second loan into a longer loan.
That's good.
So I've had that. What else have I done? That's about it. Or buy it cash, close super fast. What else? I think that's it. That's all I done.
Well, you're a man of many talents, bro, because most people are not going to go through that many options before they give up. Right? Most people are just going to give up.
Or I've also, and again, I don't know the laws because the laws are constantly changing, but sometimes if you get a complete short sale packet to the lender in time, they will postpone it. There's even been times where I've called the bank myself and I'm like, hey, this is what's going on, blah, 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 blah. And then if I catch the right person and I push hard enough, like I could be tenacious. I've had the bank just like postpone it just from me calling and like almost begging and giving an explanation on what we're about to do. But is there anything else that I'm missing? Is there any other ways?
No, man. You talked about all exit strategies there. You can seller finance. Well, there wouldn't be a mortgage if you're. You can do a hybrid, like right? Sub two hybrid. A BK, a skeleton BK, which is like a BK 13 automatic stay. You're the petition to buy time before you buy more time. All those strategies. But if those strategies don't work, and it's downhill from there, like there's no stopping it, right?
Yeah.
Then what I would recommend or suggest to wholesalers, investors, flippers, people doing pre-foreclosure transactions is I would let that seller know what's about to happen, and then prepare them for the equity that's about to be generated from that foreclosure auction.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So if I have a person I'm dealing with a $500,000 property, they have a $100K loan that they haven't paid, and if it's a good area like Vegas, for example, we know that property is probably going to sell at 60 to maybe 75% at the auction.
Okay.
Right?
That's kind of low.
It is, but if there's not a lot of bidders, I mean, even at the auction, these are cash buyers, so they don't usually go above 80%, just like they wouldn't in a wholesale deal.
Yeah.
But if I know that the property is more than likely going to have some demand, there's going to be multiple bidders trying to outbid each other, I'll let that seller know, hey, we couldn't stop the foreclosure for this reason, but I'm not going to disappear on you. I'm still here for you. Here's what I see could happen next. Your property has a $100,000 debt on it to Bank of America. They're going to take that $100,000 from the auction. Now your property's probably going to sell for $300,000 though. How do you know that, Alfred? Because I've already done the research. It's probably going to sell for $300,000 to a cash buyer. Now the difference there, that delta of $200,000, that's equity that belongs to you, Mr. or Mrs. Homeowner. And what I could do is I can represent you in recovering that equity, and I work on a contingency basis, meaning that your success is my success, Mr. or Mrs. Homeowner.
Yeah.
When I successfully recover those funds, then you pay me. So that's how it works. So there's nothing to lose for them because they've already lost the property. There's no upfront, no out-of-pocket payment. We go to work for free. It takes us like 90 days to up to 6 months to get the money out.
Oh my gosh.
And then we get paid. It's kind of like how long does it take to short sale?
Yeah, years sometimes.
It's a timeline,
yeah,
right?
Yeah,
There's a timeline.
It's just like a hurry up and wait type of thing. So
Yeah.
You gotta file this paperwork and then you gotta wait. You gotta file this paperwork and then
Even
you gotta wait.
wholesalers, I mean, if you get lucky on the first call, you close that deal and you can wholesale it in 30 days. But what are the chances you have to follow up on that deal for a couple months? They're high, right?
Yeah.
So if you take that, like with surplus, you can call that person the same day they foreclosed, and you'll have them signed under contract that same week. Like that's how quickly it moves to the contract. But then it is hurry up and wait.
So walk us through the process on like how to receive funds after a house forecloses.
Let's use Nevada, right? Let's use Nevada because I do a lot of business in Nevada. California has more foreclosures, but Nevada is right behind. When a property forecloses, you need to be keeping track of the auction data. What do I mean by that? So there's an opening bid, which is like usually the debt as what they owe to the bank, and then there's a winning bid. That's what somebody paid for at the auction. So if it's opening bid at 100K, the winning bid's at 300K, then that difference of 200,000, that's the surplus. Now, here's what you'll do. You'll make contact with that homeowner, okay? It's step one. Convince them that, hey, I can help you recover those funds that remain. You get them under contract. There's two contracts I get. It's a fee agreement, which is between the client and our company, and then there's an authorization, letter of authorization. So I put an attorney on all these files. Okay. So the letter of authorization is kind of like a retainer. They don't pay that until the end, but it allows for our attorney to represent that client.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's two signatures there. Once we get that in, we'll file that with the trustee. That's the foreclosure attorney, right?
Yeah.
They're the neutral party between the lender and the borrower.
Yeah.
Okay. They take the document and they acknowledge us. They run title, right? It takes about 30 days for them to say, hey, okay, this is a legitimate claim and there are surplus funds. They have to wait till all lien holders have filed their claim. And in Nevada, they interplead about 50% of their files. What does that mean? So they'll push the foreclosure to disbursement. They'll send it to the courts. So like they'll send it to like Lyon County court, right? Then we have to go in there and file a motion for disbursement with our attorney.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a little bit of some legal work involved with 50% of them, and then the other 50%, they actually disperse the funds at the trustee level, and it stays non-judicial.
Okay.
Right, so
that's easier.
It's easier, it's quicker.
Yeah.
You don't have to deal with the judge. You don't have to deal with the courts. You don't have to pay filing fees. So we like the non-judicial ones because the timelines are shorter.
Yeah.
It's
How long
faster.
is that one?
Not if it stays non-judicial, it's about 90 days, 4 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if it goes judicial, court, and you're waiting for the court, 6 months, 9 months. I've had deals where they take me a year. But the name of this game is just build a big pipeline. Like right now, like at any given time, we have about 50 deals that we're working on in the pipeline.
Oh, that's cool.
So it keeps us busy, and every month we have deals that fund because of the pipeline, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the process in a nutshell. There's a lot more that I'm kind of showing people that want to learn more about this.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe I'll plug that after or whatnot.
Yeah.
But you know, for folks that want to learn how to sell these, I'm actually, for the first time ever, kind of offering some assistance with that.
Okay.
I've been doing this business for 11 years, and I've never ventured out to collaborate or partner with anybody. But that's kind of why I'm out talking about it now, is because I'm like, hey, I see an opportunity for flippers, investors, pre-foreclosure wholesalers to be able to collaborate and make money by either sending deals my way or learning what I do and then just doing it themselves.
Yeah. How much do you have to pay the attorney?
It's all negotiable.
So let's talk about the back half. Like we talked about the front half with the seller.
Okay.
Let's talk about the back half.
Sure.
Like, what do you pay the attorneys? How much does it cost to file this paperwork and all that stuff?
My Nevada attorney I have on retainer.
Okay.
So I'll pay her anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 every time she needs a re-up. Okay. What does that come out to per file? About $2,000 a file.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's kind of expensive.
Yeah, it can be, but you're charging $10,000 and above on every file, right, to recover the funds. So
you're charging $10,000 and above
to recover.
But you said 10 to 15%. 10 to 15%. So that
out
means
of every 100,000.
Every 100,000.
Right.
But like, what's the average, like, amount? So you're saying the average amount that you guys are recovering is like 100,000?
No. So so that's a good question. So the way I kind of slice it up so it's easier, like for every 100,000 that we bring in, right, whether it be one client or two clients, we charge anywhere from like 10, 15 up to 25%, depending on the state.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what is the average deal? So I have a minimum threshold. I don't go after anything that has less than 50,000 of surplus.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
Got it.
it has to be more than 50,000 for us to work it. Why? Because there's going to be fees. The trustee's going to take a fee. The lender's going to take a fee. Then our attorney is going to take a fee, right? Now, with your attorney, we have attorneys that we can open up to allow people to partner with, but it really depends on what you're able to negotiate. Like the best fee that I negotiated with attorneys is $500 flat per file.
Okay.
It doesn't matter if I'm making $2,000 on that or if I'm making $20,000 on that. It's $500 flat, right? So it really depends on how you negotiate, how much the attorney knows about the industry, how much they want to, how much they want to work. Are they super successful already and don't need the money?
Yeah.
Do they need the money?
Yeah.
So it's kind of a blue ocean when it comes to like going out there and finding the attorney that's going to match up perfectly with whatever your business model is, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're running super lean and you're big profit margins, then you can pay the attorney a little more. But if you're like, you got a lot of VAs calling, you got paralegals and legal secretaries helping you push paper, like transaction coordinators, and you're paying them salaries, then you need to charge a lot more, and you got to try to get your attorneys to take less. So that's kind of the juggle.
Got it.
Yeah.
What is your average profit per deal then after everything?
So I ran my pipeline. I exported the file, right? We're just under 50 deals right now in the pipeline, and I averaged what some of them are like. I'm making 26,000 on. Some of them I'm making 7,500 on. Some of them I'm making 2,500 on.
Yeah.
Like Arizona, they have a cap 2,500. That's why I don't recommend people work that.
Okay.
I only do it because it's easy for us to get deals there. A lot of foreclosures. But I pulled the data on our net fees, and it came out to about 11,000 per deal.
Okay.
That's what I'm pretty much netting.
That's pretty good.
It's not bad.
And you have 50 deals going, so this is like a good little niche for people to learn.
Oh yeah, it can be a real business for people that really take it seriously.
Yeah. Right.
But if you're like, if you're just kind of dabbling, maybe want it as a side hustle, or maybe you just want to stop leaving money on the table, and you just, you want to just throw deals in a pipe and have someone run it for you.
Yeah.
That's something we can do for people.
Yeah.
Right. And then You know, if, let's say you do that twice a month, you just throw a deal like, hey, this one I couldn't save, this one I couldn't save. Now all of a sudden you do that for enough months, now you've got 5-10 grand just dropping in every month on top of whatever your main hustle is, right? So your main hustle is wholesale.
Yeah.
You don't want to learn surplus. You don't want to build relationships with attorneys. You don't want to hire paralegals or legal secretaries or VAs. You just want to toss deals over to an expert to help them take the deal to the finish line and get paid. That's what we can do.
What do you do? Do you do this across the whole country or just a few states?
I can, but I have states that I prefer. So the states I prefer are California, Texas, Georgia, Nevada, Oregon, Arizona, Washington. I do a little bit of business in Utah, and we hit Florida as well. Okay. So it's a good number of states. There's some states I don't do, you know, for different reasons. Like Colorado is really difficult. There's states that really like oversee too much, and like, the judge wants to know like what you're making on the deal and stuff. And if they deem it to be excessive, they can like object to your fee. It's just So we don't work in those states.
How do you collect?
Good question. So if it's being dispersed by the trustee, whether it's being dispersed by the trustee or the courts, it gets sent to our attorney. So the attorney drops it in their IOTA account, which is an attorney trust account. Yeah. And it clears that account first. Then the attorney wires me the money. They keep their fee and they wire me the rest.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you don't have to wait for the seller to like get the funds and then
No. So a couple times in the past, and we've learned not to do this, where we allowed the check to go to the seller first, right? And when they know money's coming, they'll call you every day. Like, hey, is the money here yet? Hey, is the money here yet? But we did a couple goofs where we allowed the check to go to the seller first before we took our fee. And then what do you think happened?
They didn't pay.
They disappeared from the planet, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we couldn't get a hold of them.
Dang.
Yeah, so we've lost some money that way, but we don't do it that way no more because when we're filling out our claim forms and filling out our petitions, we're telling the courts where to send the money. Yeah. And it's all an agreement between the client and us. The fee agreement says, hey, we're going to receive the funds. We're going to put them into our IOTA account. Yeah. And once it clears the IOTA account, which is about 10 to 14 business days, then we'll disperse out to you. We can do wire. We can do check.
Got it.
Yeah.
And can you tell us a story of like how exactly you got into this?
Yeah. So my background is not even before this. I mean, I've been in this business for 11 years. A little older than most people might think, but I was doing insurance for 10 years, life insurance. Yeah. Door to door, right? Yeah. And I was really good at that. And that's where I learned my sales and people skills. Yeah. And I capped out, right? Because I was working for someone else's agency. And the more I did, the more that person made, right? Mm-hmm. I would have like small increases, got up to like a low 6-figure annual salary. The ambition in me, the drive in me, realized I just needed more. Yeah. And so I sought out a different industry just because I wanted more autonomy. I wanted more, I wanted more of like an uncapped opportunity. And this kind of stumbled on me because I had a mortgage professional and an attorney who were friends of mine. And they contacted me because the mortgage professional was more of like he was like an operator. He wasn't a sales guy. Yeah. And then the attorney was just an attorney. And they said, hey, we have this little niche that we discovered called surplus funds, and we need somebody to come in and build out the sales organization.
Oh, that's cool.
And we want you to do that. At first, I was like, I don't know anything about it. I'm good making my 6 figures, selling insurance. I'm okay. So I basically told them no for like 3 months. And then I started looking at it, and they're like, look at these numbers that we're pulling from these deals. Yeah. But we can't scale the sales side because we don't know what we're doing on building a sales team. Yeah. Long story short, I took a deeper look into it, analyzed the industry, started calculating the numbers. The numbers got really exciting for me, almost like unbelievable. And I made the jump. We hired 9 people. I trained all 9 of them, plus myself, and we were all just slamming the phones. Yeah. And so from 2013 to like 2018 until the regulations started hitting in, we were recovering anywhere from like 12 to 15 million in surplus. Dang. And at that time, without regulation and little competition, we were charging 30, 35% on that money. Yeah. Right? So it was generating a real nice mid 7-figure revenue for the business.
Yeah.
And we were doing really well. Since then, the partners we've split ways and we've started our own things. And so now with what I do in my organization, it's completely 100% mine. And basically I've just hired all of the talent.
What systems do you use to run this business?
My CRM is Zoho. You can also run it from like, go high level. You can customize it to whatever you want. And then I'm using like auction data software or like investor software like Property Radar, PropStream,
I used to use Property Radar.
right? Auction.com, Zome. I've even gone like in person to auctions to look at the live data. And so in terms of like how we manage all of our stuff, I would say Zoho is our main thing. Then we have a couple different dialers like Ring Central, AirCall. We put a bunch of phone numbers in a power dialer. Yeah. And so like the way we skip trace is like super deep, especially because half of our deals are estate files, meaning that the owner's deceased. And now we're doing a little bit of like a mini investigation on who's entitled. And so we'll do like a family tree skip trace, and I'll pull up like 40, 50 numbers on one lead, right? And that can take forever to dial. So we throw it into this power dialer called AirCall, and we hit go, and it just dials it out for us, right? Yeah. A lot of numbers are disconnected, but as soon as we get an answer, then we jump right into the script. And then, it's off to the races from there. So besides that, it's just, I think, general software that everyone else uses, like a bookkeeping software, a chat, like an internal chat software and stuff like that.
What about where do you do the skip tracing from?
So I use a skip trace software called TLO, which you may have heard of. It's the best one, but I like talking about it because a lot of people don't have access to it. You got to be an attorney to get it. Yeah. Right.
I don't know if you have to be an attorney to get it, but there's definitely a lot of hoops to get into.
Have you tried lately? Do you guys use it?
We had it before. We had it like a few years ago, and I think I just let it expire.
Try getting it again.
Okay.
Because I had it personally as well. It was to my name. As a non-attorney. Yeah. And I tried to renew it 2 years ago, and they declined me. Oh, really? So I had to bring an attorney in to get it for me. Oh. So okay. I don't know if it's just maybe they've put in some new rules because some people ruin it for everyone else. Maybe they're abusing it, doing stuff they shouldn't be doing, like reselling the data because you're not supposed to do that. Yeah. But as an attorney, so the attorney that I have working a lot of my cases, by trade, he's a collections attorney. And so he's got all the skip trace software, right? LexisNexis, TLO, you name it. He's got everything. So that's the one I use.
Got it. Yeah. What about what does your team look like?
We're pretty lean, I think.
Let's say the front. Let's go into the front half and then the back half of the fulfillment.
Yeah. So the front half, there's about 3 sales VAs who are calling leads daily.
Are they like actual VAs or they're like
Philippines?
Okay.
Yeah, they're from the Philippines. VAs.
Damn.
Right. And it's hard. Like I have one guy who he's been with me for 2 years. It takes a while. It was a big learning curve with this.
Oh, 100%. Because you have to learn the foreclosure process, right? And then you have to master sales, like we just talked about. A lot of these people are like super unreasonable. So I'm surprised you have VAs doing this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on the phones too. So
you're on the phones.
Yeah, so I use my VAs. Well, we're using each other, right? No one's using, but
Yeah, you're working together.
We're working together, but if you can't be used, then you're useless, right?
Yeah.
But so they do the front end. They call. They'll close, and if they can't close, they will either live transfer it to me or task me on it, and I'll call them. They'll put it like on my calendar and be like, "Hey, call this guy. I couldn't close him. He has this rebuttal, or he has this concern, or he needs eviction assistance, or he needs relocation assistance. He won't sign it until he gets that." And so I'll come in and offer those 2 things as well, other than just surplus funds recovery.
What does that mean, eviction assistance?
So when somebody, like if the sheriff's about to come in, right, or if the new owner files an eviction, unlawful detainer through the courts, I'll come in and I'll call the new homeowner on my client's behalf, and I'll negotiate more time for them. I'm pretty good at negotiating 30, 60, 90 days. I'll even negotiate short-term leases.
You're terrible.
Why, dude? You're the landlord,
joking,
right?
I'm
So
joking.
you'd be the landlord that I call, and I'm like, hey, Brian.
I'll be like, hell no.
So what I tell like homeowner, I go, hey, what's your story? Why would the homeowner want to give you more time? The new homeowner want to give you more time? I go, tell me your sob story.
Oh my God.
And they'll be like, well, I've been on disability for the last 3 years. I just lost my husband, so I'm going to write all this stuff down, right?
Gosh.
Then I'm going to take that sob story and I'm going to give it to them because I want to win for my client,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
I want to
yeah,
win because they're going to
yeah.
pay me a good amount of money on the surplus side.
That makes sense.
And I do that part for free.
Yeah.
The other thing I've been breaking into, in Georgia, I did this for a woman. She got back $170K.
Yeah.
Right? She has a foreclosure on her record. No bank is going to give her a loan.
Yeah.
However, do you know who will sell her a house?
The buyer that
A landlord that wants to sell a house on seller finance, and he wants to take $100K down on a down payment for a $250,000 property.
Oh yeah.
Right? So I connected her to a landlord who had a property that he was kicking out his tenants. And I was like, hey, dude, he's like, I don't know, she's high risk. I go, she's high risk, but she's willing to put down $100K on this $200,000 property. I go, that's half the value. And he's like, I'm in.
Yeah.
And then he can foreclose on her if he needs to. But I'm giving these homeowners hope. Like, hey, I can help you own a home again.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, you can't. I have a foreclosure on my record. Yeah, I can't. I have people across the country that'll sell you a house on seller finance. So that's an added benefit that I offered to homeowners in this situation, just so I can become more valuable to the marketplace because there's competition out there.
Do you ever fight the evictions? Like besides giving the sob story?
Yeah.
Oh my God, dude.
Yeah, dude. I'll file an answer and everything.
Oh my God, dude. Dude, I have, it sounds so bad, but dude, I've just dealt with so many terrible tenants that I am immune to sob stories. Like, okay, I'll give you another example, right? And even though I say this, I'm such a freaking pussy sometimes that, so
You're human, bro.
I'm human. So I bought this house from this foreclosure lady, right? This was this year.
Yeah.
It's funny because she just moved out yesterday. So check this out. I bought it in April.
Okay.
Right now we're filming this. It's September. So she was supposed to close escrow and buy it back from me in July. Right? So she had April, June, July 1st. She's supposed to buy it back. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, dude, I'm accepting. And I agreed to sell it back to her at a huge discount. Right? Yeah. So I was like, oh, here you go. I'll sell it back to you. I felt bad. She had a whole sob story, right? Mm-hmm. July 1st comes. Brian, August 1st. I'm like, all right, August 1st. I'm trying to be a good Christian. August 1st rolls around. I'm calling my uncle, and he's not getting back to me, and Okay, so... And anyways, I have to end up, paying for her to move and give her extra time. So now we're looking at right now it's September 6th. And she just moved out.
Wow.
Yeah, I haven't got the keys yet. got the keys yet. So hopefully I get the keys today.
Damn,
but
dude.
I've dealt with so many tenants that I just have a disdain.
You're immune to that.
I'm immune to the sob story. I'm like, hey, I'm sorry, but I'd rather just give you money because I know they're gonna stay. They're gonna try to stay longer. Like, hey, I'll just give you $10,000.
Yep.
Just move. I just don't want to sit here and like go back and forth. So you fight for them to stay.
We fight the first thing is I offer the homeowner who just bought it, I offer to buy it back. So I say, hey, the person that just lost, they want to buy it back. And they're like, how? They don't even have, well, I tell them, well, they have this money coming. They want to buy back the property. So they can buy it back.
How will they qualify?
Well, they'll just sell it to them on seller finance if they're open to that.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. So, or if they say, some people actually have a settlement come in or they have some money come in that didn't come in time. And so if not that, then we just try to negotiate relocation or try to do cash for keys for them as well. So, but back to your question was, I got the front end guys calling, right? The VAs. And then I have 2 legal secretaries, a paralegal, and I have attorneys in all the states that I work in. Yeah. So that's kind of the back end side. So we got the sales and then the legal. side.
Yeah.
So if I had to split this business into two departments, I would say the front end is there's the sales and marketing, right? Trying to get the client under contract.
Who does the marketing?
So our form of marketing is email, text, and cold call.
Okay.
Right. So there's some people that do mailers,
Yeah.
which is another form of marketing. Facebook outreach. We do a little bit of Facebook outreach as well. So my VAs, they do that. So in addition to calling, they also text, they also email, they also do Facebook outreach.
Got it. Okay. And then the back half you said
is the legal.
Paralegal.
Mm-hmm.
Are they paid per file? Or are they like a TC?
So I have 2 legal secretaries on salary.
Okay. So they work just
they're
for
like
you.
TCs. Yeah, they work just for me.
And then in California.
They're here in they live in California,
Got it.
Rialto and Chino.
Okay, so do you have a whole office, or are you guys all virtual?
So I got rid of my office in 2021.
Okay.
I broke my lease because of COVID.
Okay, great. Good for
and we've stayed remote since.
Oh, okay.
I have an office I pay rent at where I can show up and work out of that office.
Yeah.
But my team is remote. They're all scattered.
Got it.
Including in the Philippines. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you got the paralegal, you got...
The paralegal works for the attorney, so I don't pay salary. I pay them on a per deal basis.
They're like a TC.
Kind of like a TC, yeah. And then the same thing with the attorney. I pay, most of my attorneys I pay on a per file basis. And then I have my Nevada attorney, where she's a probate attorney as well. She's excellent. She wrote a book on estate planning. I pay her on retainer because that's how she wants to be paid.
Okay.
Yeah.
What else? Is there any other team members?
There's no other moving parts to this, man. It really just, it's pretty simple. Learning the business model is, of course, there's a learning curve.
Yeah.
But if you're a guy who it's like you, you already have your main thing, right? You want to keep your main thing the main thing.
Yeah.
But as you said earlier, the number of deals you're working in pre-foreclosure that end in foreclosure, that number's pretty high.
Well, yeah. Statistically, what do these numbers look like? What have you seen? So let's just say 1,000 houses go into notice of default. What typically happens with all those houses?
It's a small percentage. Most of them get cured, right? They get reinstated.
How many do you think percentage?
More than half, dude.
Okay.
Yeah, so more than half. Yeah. And then out of those, they have auction. The auction is scheduled on that day. Like I'll pull up LA County. It'll have like 65 scheduled auctions today.
Yeah.
Out of those 65, 7 of them might go to actual sale.
Yeah.
Right. And then out of those 7, maybe like 5 of them will have surplus. The other 2 might be reverted to beneficiary, meaning that the bank just took it back.
Oh,
right?
okay.
So when you're talking about how many deals actually have surplus, it's like, out of all the foreclosures, it gets very slim.
Yeah.
In terms of deals with high equity that end in foreclosure that have surplus that we can go after and recover.
Yeah.
Because most people with high equity, if they come to their senses eventually, they know that like really the ball's in their court, and they have so many options when you have a lot of equity. So many options, dude.
Yeah.
And that's why it still amazes me that people let their house foreclose. I mean, I've seen people $700,000 properties foreclose over 20 grand of debt, dude.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's interesting that you said that, because I actually just went to a property in my neighborhood where the property potentially is worth $950. So it's not like a cheap house in Las Vegas. Like LA, that could be a little ghetto house. This is like a gated community house, 4,000 square foot with a pool. I went and looked at it. The lady, her husband passed away, and she stopped paying, and her foreclosure literally, I think, was going to be like on Monday or something like that. She stopped paying, and she just kind of like she's not doing anything. Yeah. Like I literally went over there with my wife and kids and looked at the house because I was like, oh, we might move into it. And she was just cooking. She was just chilling. It was not like it was just like almost like a mental block that she was having, where she was just like, yeah, I haven't paid the mortgage and it's going to foreclose, and I don't want to sell it on the real estate market. You could buy it if you want it, but that's it. I was like, all right, cool. We'll go look at it. And
they still want $1 million, right?
Yeah. Well, she was willing to take less.
Okay.
But it was just weird. It was just weird to see. Like, again, this is not like a little ghetto beat up house. that you could walk in and say, oh, there's like mental issues. It was just like beautiful. Like I'm talking a 4,000 square foot nice house with a pool and like gated community. I was just like, what the heck? Like this lady she just kind of stopped caring.
She was too relaxed about it.
Yeah, she was just super relaxed. She was just like, if my house was about to foreclose, I'm like, hey, are you gonna buy this? Like, what are we gonna do? Right. I went and looked at it. She didn't follow up with me. I just called her, just said, hey, like we just didn't like the floor plan, and that was it. But okay, so back to the data. So half of the people get out. Out of pre-foreclosure. How many of the people left actually end up foreclosing, you think? Not just surplus, but like the house is actually foreclosed. And what happens to the rest of them? They sell?
10%, I would say. Yeah. Okay. They have a scheduled auction. Maybe 10% will actually foreclose. A lot of them get postponed or canceled for a BK or they bought some kind of time, paid off a little bit of their arrears, or the bank did some kind of like forbearance, or just gave them some kind of break for some reason, right? But there's a lot of professional foreclosure homeowners where they end up in foreclosure often. Like, oh yeah, for sure. Right. So I'll look at title at some of these properties and I'll be like, man, you've been in and out of foreclosure since 2012. Like, what's going on? I've seen that. Yeah. So there's a lot of people that are like professionals at this. Yeah. And 80% of people that go into foreclosure, and that's the stat, 80% will go back into that foreclosure. Oh, wow. It's a big stat. So that's interesting. If you've been in foreclosure before, the chances are you're going to be back into it. So what I do is I track these properties. I'll build a relationship with these people, because even the ones that sometimes end in foreclosure, if there was something filed last minute and maybe the trustee didn't get the information in time, the auction still occurred, then it gets rescinded. So they give the money back to the investor. Yeah. And then they say, okay, homeowner, you have 2 months to figure this out now. Yeah. That person usually ends back into foreclosure. And then I'll track that property and be like, what do you know? They're back. Yeah. I'll call and be like, hey, it's me again. Yeah, yeah, like, now I need your help, man. Yeah. So I've done deals like that plenty of times where it didn't work out the first go around, but the second go around, $15K, $20K on a surplus fee. Yeah. So okay, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna create a partnership program with me and you. Yeah. I'm gonna post an ad during this video and say, hey, if you have these people, hit me up, and we're gonna JV those deals. Awesome. All right. Yeah. All sounds good, man. So if people want to reach out to you and find you, where do they go? Easiest way is I created a domain for all my stuff, alfredtaren.com. ALFREDTAREN.com. You'll find all my social media handles, my YouTube. And then coming soon, I'm going to be doing a free community on school.com. Yeah. Where I'm just going to be sharing free nuggets on how people can actually take advantage of these deals and stop leaving money on the table. Yeah. But super stoked to do deals with you as well. Yeah, for sure. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening to the Wealthy Investor Podcast. Again, my name is Brian Davila. If you haven't yet, subscribe, and we will see you on the next episode. Peace.